So, welcome everybody to our Master Teacher webinar, our second one of the cohort. So we've offered 3 of these so that everybody's scheduling could work, and this is our last opportunity, so we're glad you guys joined us. We are recognizing that your lives have been upended professionally and personally in a lot of ways, and so the Master Teacher may have been pushed to the back burner for a while for you. And so if this is a little bit like a catch up, like, oh, that's right, I'm doing this again. I remember I'm in the master cohort. That's okay. Please don't feel bad about, if your assignments aren't caught up or whatever. Remember, this is a loose cohort in terms of when things are due and when you submit things. So we'll go over those informational pieces about the calendar, when things are due, quote unquote, and how that'll work. And then Amber's going to give you the information about the 2 activities that we're going to do this module. And then we'll also talk about your next steps and what's coming down the pike. So just very quickly, we will start with the calendar. And as just a reminder, the cohort started in January and we run all the way through December. So technically you have until December of 2020 to finish everything in the master cohort. So again, don't worry about deadlines at this point. Here is a quick outline. This is in the Canvas course, this chart, but here it is again, just as a quick reminder of all the things that go on in the Master Teacher cohort. At the top, the requirements that you have to be able to show, and then near the bottom and the middle, the activities that you will complete. And again, all of that is listed in Canvas, and I'll show you a checklist here in a minute that you can use. If you'll remember correctly, we kind of organized the cohort around 3 modules, and the module 1 activities were through the end of April. And so now we're in module 2, which is just loosely on the calendar, going to run through August, right through the summer. And so the 2 activities and materials that Amber's going to cover with you today, technically the due date for those is the end of August. But again, those are flexible dates and you can adjust them. We would recommend, though, that even if you are thinking to yourself like, hey, summer is going to be crazy, I'm probably not going to do any master teacher work over the summer, that's fine. But what we would encourage you to do is go ahead and go into Canvas and take a peek at what's due, what's coming up, what are those activities, and your special project assignment. If you've not already decided on it or started it, take a peek at that and just then think ahead to your future. If you think summer is going to be crazy busy for you, fine, you can push things back. But if you think your fall is going to be insanely busy, we would just encourage you to start thinking about maybe getting some of your work done over the summer. So again, we're not dictating that. We're just simply encouraging you to take a peek at your calendars and anticipate. And of course, if you are unsure about how you should split any assignments up or when you should do something, feel free to just email Amber or myself, and we'll give you some advice if you want it. And then also I just wanted to touch base. I know it's getting near the end of the fiscal year, and some of you are getting lovely emails from your directors and administrators saying, I need 12 PD hours from you, right? Because that's that minimum number that every teacher has to meet. And so if you need to get those 12 hours submitted to your director, remember that for Module 1, if you completed all of the activities in Module 1, there were 5 PD hours wrapped up in that. Module 2 that we're in now, this webinar counts for 1 hour, and you'll get a certificate probably this afternoon if I get around to emailing them, but certainly by Monday. And then the activities that go with it are also some PD hours. If you do them in June, you can get them in this fiscal year currently. Otherwise, everything you do after July 1st, those will be FY21 PD hours, right? So again, for some of you, this doesn't really matter because you have 100 PD hours earned at this point and you don't need these. But for those of you out there for whom it does matter, I just wanted to touch base that you will have some PD that you've earned, that you have certificates from that came via email from us, that you can submit for your fiscal year 20. But then everything basically that you earn after this webinar, basically after July 1, will be FY21 hours. And that includes your special project and the webinar that goes with that, which will be up to 9 hours. So I do just want to tell you too, if you're thinking, okay, there's a lot going on. You keep talking about all these activities and all these PD hours. There is a chart located in Canvas, and there at the bottom where it says the verification required page, if you go to Canvas and click the verification required page, you're going to see a chart. It's a PDF document that you can print or save, and then you can actually use it as a as a checklist if that helps you. This is just a copy of the second page that shows you all of the different activities on the left, what documented evidence you'll submit there in the middle, and how many PD hours it's worth. And so many of you have already done some of these, and some of them you will be doing after you hear about them today from Amber. So that document is available to you in Canvas. And again, if you're not a list follower, if you don't need a checklist, if you're fine, just tell me what to do and I'll do it, and you're comfortable with that, great. But this is a document that's available for you if it's useful. And again, it's just a tool. Think of it as like a scaffold, like a graphic organizer. If you don't need it, don't use it. But if it's helpful, print it off and take a peek at it. And of course, if there's anything about it that you're not sure what you want to use it for, or what's on it, what does it mean, just send us an email or give us a call. Amber and I are always happy to help you guys. So we're going to jump into the meat of the activities that are coming up in Module 2, and Amber's going to take over.
Hi, everyone. I just want to say, well, ditto to everything that Anita has said in the beginning about flexibility within this cohort. And, generally, I would say that Anita and I are pretty flexible with this group anyway, but even in this time, that's what is being demanded of us, right, is flexibility. And so we want you to know that we are flexible and we're here to support you. Like we've said from the beginning, the due dates are flexible and the due dates are you're able to assign. Hang on, we're getting feedback from someone there. Okay, that's better, thank you. So let me talk to you a little bit about the next 2 assignments for the second part of our cohort that we're running for the year. The first one is the resource alignment tool, and we strongly encourage you to complete this activity in collaboration with another trained specialist. This is a pretty hefty tool, and we want you to feel comfortable using it. It would be unlikely that if you were using it in your program, you would be doing it by yourself anyway. So we want you to simulate this idea of working together. If you don't have a trained specialist at your program, or it's just hard to find them right now because of what's kind of going on, you can feel free to reach out to Anita or I, and we can try and connect you with another specialist that maybe wants to work together on aligning a resource, and then that way you guys can organize your own meetings and work on this together. So just be sure to indicate whom you worked with on the assignment so that we know. So here is an example of the language arts resource alignment tool. And I know I have Linda on with me, but they look the same. So they just say different words, but the tools mirror each other. So whether you're math or language arts, the information that I'm going to give to you applies. At the beginning of the resource alignment tool, this is where we talk about the process, what it would look like if you were to use this tool, rating the resource against the tool, determining high value actions, getting an overall score, and then beginning that lesson revision process. You are not, for the purposes of Master Teacher, going to begin the lesson revision process. We're just asking you to really complete steps 1 through 3 and turn them in. So we took a screenshot over on the right-hand bottom side of the screen here for you to kind of just refresh your memory. Remember that there are 3 criterion for each within the tool, and those criterion are then split into dimensions, and those all coincide with the key shifts, whether you're in language arts or math. And that's what we're using. We're using the key shifts to evaluate the resource. So also remember, there's a lot of information on this page, and we tried to organize it as best we can, but you're looking for evidence in the evidence box, and these questions will help you determine the range of that evidence, right? What evidence is there for instance, argumentative and informative writing and speaking, And then answering these questions will help you determine the rating that has to happen. Excuse me for just. Sorry about that. That would be the children needing something. Their demands are different. They think their demands are very high on my list at this moment, and they're not. But here we go. So, so as you fill out this document, you're looking at the evidence within the resource that is required to mark this as meets, partially meets, or does not meet. One of the things that sometimes people forget is they go through and they do all the evidence and the questions and the summary, and even the high value actions. They mark, what would I need to do to make this resource work for our program or for the classrooms that are at my program? And then they kind of forget to put the actual rating of the resource. Does it meet, partially meet, or does not meet? And again, remember that this is a continuum, so you can mark kind of anywhere along this line. It doesn't have to be just in the middle of meets, partially meets, or does not meet. Be sure that there is evidence. Remember, within our critical friends model, we talk about how each comment that is made should be rooted in evidence, and that's important for this tool as well. And that evidence should be listed in your summary of strengths and weaknesses. As a reminder, there's a summary for strengths and weaknesses after each criterion, not each dimension. So it's the criterion as a whole. What are the summaries and, or excuse me, what are the strengths and weaknesses? So what's the value of walking through this tool? Why spend time on resource alignment and revision, right? Adult ed programs typically have a budget for materials that they use, and sometimes that budget is not very extensive. So we have what we have, right? And so there are things in our library or in our resource that we've either been told to use or told this is what's at your disposal. And even in the realm of kind of now where we live with OERs or open education resources, not everything that's on the internet is good, right? So not everything that's online is appropriate for adult ed students. So this resource alignment tool, while intended for text, like a text or a printed material when it was made, the same principles can be used in an online format. So let me speak to that first. I'm sure some of you have copies of books that you are already thinking, yep, I wanna do that one. Or maybe you've already walked through this activity at your program, and that's fine too. However, if you are looking for a resource and you're looking at your bookshelf thinking, I didn't bring any of that with me and my college is closed, how am I supposed to get a resource that I need? You can use an online resource, but we want to give you a few parameters. So first of all, this tool is intended to be used to revise and align an entire resource, not a lesson. So you're not looking at just one lesson. We already did that, right? We're looking at an entire resource that can be difficult to find online in kind of the way that you would find it in a textbook. So you might have to kind of pick and choose what is going to be best for you to use if you're using an online resource. My suggestion is that you choose a grade level band within an online resource so that you can focus in on those particular standards. If you want clarity or help with figuring out what resource you're going to use or how you're going to use it, feel free to contact Anita and I will be happy to help you kind of navigate through that, because we realize that it's not quite as easy as pulling a book off your shelf and just going with that one in this instance. Also, if you're working with somebody from a different program, in order to collaborate, you might have to choose a resource that's online versus in print because maybe you guys don't all have it. So what is the value for programs? What's the value for students? When we're looking at printed or online resources, again, we want to be looking for materials that are appropriate for adults and are also aligned to our standards and making sure that our college and career readiness standards are being addressed. So that is the value, right? Because our students need more than simply passing a high school equivalency test, and we all know that, right? I'm talking to the choir here, right? Speaking to the choir. But that's why, as master teachers, we're looking for you to lead the charge in this idea of resource alignment and bringing it back to, oh, well, which one, instead of which one's less expensive and, you know, which one looks nice, back to, well, which one is most standards aligned? Where are we going to get the most bang for our buck, if you will, and helping your program make those decisions, because ultimately that's what a master teacher and specialist, you know, would be doing. So,
No, Amber, I just thought of
yeah,
something really fast while you were talking that we haven't said
yeah,
on any of the other webinars, which is there's plenty of time. If you wanted to request a free sample of a material from a publisher
oh,
and get it mailed to
mhm,
your home, you could absolutely do that. There's no reason you couldn't do that. Let's say that you had seen an advertisement or you'd been on a webinar with a publisher company and you saw some textbook out there that was advertised. You thought, ooh, that looks cool. I wonder what that's like. You can contact a publisher, just send them an email and ask them for a free sample. They'll send you, they always will send you samples. They usually won't send you like all 6 books, but they'll often send you, if you request lowest level or highest level, they'll mail you copies of samples. And so you could actually get your hands on a hard copy of a book that way, of a projected book, right? Something our program might use in the future.
mhm.
You could do that, or you could do exactly what Amber describes. If you've got a book in your office at home or in your house that you want to analyze, great. Otherwise, you can use an online resource. And we talked in the last webinar about Common Lit was just one example, and how it has this huge text library of thousands of resources in it. You would never be able to analyze the whole thing. So if you chose a specific grade level band within Common Lit and just did a sampling throughout, and to answer your questions on your tool, that would be fine too. So that gives you, I hope, a couple of different options as you think ahead. We definitely want this opportunity to do this activity to be useful to you, not busy work. So find an online resource that you think you'll use in the fall or that you're currently using, a book that you're currently using, or a book that you think you might use, so that it becomes a useful activity and not busy work. So
Yeah, that is a great idea. We should probably put that somewhere in an announcement on the master teacher cohort, Anita, as people are trying to tackle
very
this
good
assignment.
idea. I will make a note.
So, when you consider how you would implement this alignment tool at your program, what do you think would work well? What are you excited to see? Maybe you've already done this and you've seen some results. Is there anything you want to share or any questions you have specific to the resource alignment tool? This is a time that you could unmute if you wanted to.
So I was just going to say, I find it very valuable if you can come in with the alignment tool to either explain why you want to keep a text or why it may not be the best one for us to use. And I've used it both ways. You know, when something was when we were being encouraged to use something that maybe we didn't love. I don't know how to say it. It wasn't a really strong resource, but for some reason it was coming off, you know, it was being encouraged, and we were able to say, you know, hey, here's where it's falling short. Again, the other thing is just say, it also was great because we could use that tool to say, we like this tool, here's where it's falling short, and this is what we need to do to make it work for us. So
Yeah.
I love
Thank
the
you.
way you're thinking about that the other way, right? It can be a, do we want to use this tool analysis, or a, we're already using it and where are the gaps that need to be filled, right? That's kind of like a secondary perspective. And yeah, it could be either of those. Yeah, appreciate that.
All right. So the next, yeah, sorry, I'm just making sure I was unmuted. Okay. I don't want to be talking and not unmuted. That would not be good. So the next assignment that is part of this second module or second phase of the master teacher cohort is a critical friends group plan. It's not necessarily developing a critical friends group, but what would you like to see? What would be your pie in the sky? How would you handle a critical friends group at your program? So remember that critical friends groups, that word critical really notes important, essential, urgent, and every comment that you should be making should be rooted in evidence. Typically, a critical friends group would have 4 to 6 members. Meetings are held regularly. And in this technology age that we're in right now, we can already see how meetings wouldn't have to be face to face, right? And sometimes that's more convenient and easier for adult ed teachers or adult ed master or specialists to convene, right? Because they don't have to be at a physical place at a physical time. So certainly using technology to your advantage would be really helpful in this process. For this assignment, you're going to create a plan of action for a potential critical friends group at your local program. Your plan should include a basic outline of how that collaborative group would run at your program, including details regarding like size, how often would you meet, project objectives. So what are you looking to get done? And then a timeline for the group. When does it start? When does it end? And so on and so forth. If your program already has an active critical friends group, consider designing a plan for an alternate group, maybe with a different goal or a different set of teachers. And remember, this is a proposal for a potential group. You're not obligated to implement this plan. Okay, so there's no, especially during this time, we wouldn't ask you to do this. We also understand that different programs have restrictions on kind of, the collaborative group that can happen, and we don't want to interfere with that. So this activity is designed to help you begin to operate as that instructional leader in your program. If you could have a critical friends group at your program, what would it look like? And maybe at some point down the line, you could use that to propose to your administrator professional development for your program, and you having that master teacher credential could lead that. So that's kind of the idea. We're hoping to set you up, right, for the best outcome as an instructional leader in your program. Let me show you an example of one. This is by one of our specialists, Brett O'Brien. Last summer, we had a collaborative working group through a federal agency that we encourage people to make these critical friends proposals. And so, excuse me. You can see here that Brett outlined the objective. What exactly are they trying to attain or do within this time period? The design, a little bit of a description of how it would work, and then the 3 meetings that he intended to have. So meeting 1 would be focused on this, and they would leave doing some homework of this. And then meeting 2 would be this. He even included the professional development hours. If we haven't already, because I know we talked about this in our other webinar this week, we're going to be posting a few samples up in the master teacher cohort for you. So this is, by no means do you have to have these headings with these particular bolded. There is no template. This really is a craft of your own mind, a craft of your mind. And so
Amber, excuse me, are you showing a screen? Because I can't see it. Or am I supposed to be able to see what you're talking about?
Is anyone else having that problem?
So you might look for on the bottom of your computer screen, like where your dock is, see if you can find an orange circle with a little white snowflake in it and click it. See if that
I'm actually on my phone, but
oh, that might be why.
First time though that you had a screen shot up there, I saw it, just like the beginning of a PowerPoint or something. But now I can't. It's okay. Go ahead.
You might also try swiping. Swipe right or swipe left and see if it pops up like it does on Zoom.
I'm afraid that. Oh, okay. Hang on. Okay, I see it. Thank you.
Yep.
Yeah, we've been learning all of those different GoToMeeting, Zoom things. Yeah, they do appear differently on the phone, right? Because that screen isn't big enough to hold, it's not big enough to hold everything, right? So then sometimes it goes to a different, like an alternate screen, you have to find it. Sometimes I get lost in my layers of tabs, and I'm on 2 monitors, so I can only imagine looking at a phone. So yeah, so here's the Critical Friends proposal, and we're going to have these as samples up in the cohort. We'll make sure that's up by the weekend, so you can definitely see
They're up
that.
there now.
Awesome, thank you. I know that was on our list. I just didn't know if it had been done. So yeah, there are samples of Critical Friends proposals up in the Master Teacher Cohort in Canvas. So you can look at a few of them and kind of go, oh, okay, now I get the gist of it, right? Now I can develop my own Critical Friends group. It's also helpful to just see what have other people done, because depending on their program, they might have structured it a little bit differently. For instance, Brett O'Brien works at Safer Foundation, which is associated with the Cook County Jail. And so there might be very specific things that he's going to have in his plan that maybe your plan is not going to have, or maybe you would include because your program is similar. So this is an example of the plan, the Critical Friends group plan.
And it would be fine too if you want to keep your Critical Friends plan focused on just your content area, like Brett focused on math. We've had other teachers put proposals together that are cross-disciplinary, right? So ESL teachers are brought in and transitions teachers, and right, so it can be multidisciplinary Critical Friends groups. It depends on, as Amber mentioned, that objective, what the goal of your group is. That'll determine who's in your group. And remember, this is an aspiration, right, of what you would like to see. So don't worry about, can this actually work, but make a plan that you think might really benefit. We've had some people write a proposal for curriculum development, some people doing lesson revisions, some people doing observations, and it's been a combination of those. So you can be as creative as you'd like.
Thank you. Okay, so what's the value, right? And I think this is what Anita just spoke to. Why spend time working as Critical Friends? What's the value for programs and students? This goes back to that age-old idea of, two minds are better than one, or two brains are better than one, right? Collaboration really can help us be effective. And that's what this entire pathway program is about, right? Is trying to get these groups of Critical Friends and instructors to collaborate together in a world in adult ed where that hasn't been always the case, where many teachers are kind of siloed based on their physical location of when they teach, or where they teach, or when they teach. And so now we really are in this age of being able to collaborate virtually, and we think that we're hoping that this Critical Friends group idea can really benefit some programs. And even if they're informal Critical Friends, I know at my own program, some of my Critical Friends will even kind of joke at about it, like, oh, she's my Critical Friend. But and that's fine, but we want to know, what would be your pie in the sky, and how would you help your program? We're also hoping that administrators can see these proposals and recognize that the professionals on their team can be a real asset to them and be instructional leaders, and kind of take some of that PD and take some of that content off their plate, if you will. So what are you thinking about this particular assignment, and what are you excited? Are you anxious? What questions do you have?
Well, I will be teaching in a new area in the fall, and so I'll be working with new faculty, or they're new to me, faculty members. They're actually not new to the college, and so I think it'll be interesting for me to try and set up a group, or a potential group to, these are technology faculty members, and they're not in adult ed so much as, with HSE prep and all that. And so it'll be interesting merging the two. It's part of an ICAPS program. So I think to create a group that can explore how to merge the two sides, and how to be sure that our students are getting what they need from the HSE perspective, in addition to the technological areas. I think it'll help me make a plan, and I think it'll benefit me as an instructor, and help me kind of transition between the two sides of the college. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Absolutely, yeah. And that's another way to use this premise of another way to use this premise of a critical friends group, again, in that kind of multidisciplinary approach, which could really benefit an entire program as opposed to just, you know, the sliver of math or the sliver of language arts or so on and so forth. And on the ESL side of the house, they are developing specialists right now. They have a couple specialists going on. So if you're kind of not aware of that side of the house, you know, there might be people on that side which you can work with in order to, as opposed to just, you know, the sliver. I'm getting a lot of feedback. Sorry, it's hard to hear. Okay. So, any other comments or questions that you have about critical friends groups? The proposal. Sorry, go ahead.
Janet, right? I love the name Critical Friends Group. It is non-threatening to encourage members of my organization to want to participate and to understand how important it is for all of us to collaborate in developing our adult education program based on the content standards.
Yeah, if you couldn't hear Janet, we could hear you just barely, but if you were having trouble hearing, Janet was saying that she loves the idea that Critical Friends is a non-threatening group. It's a collaborative encouragement and structure that is welcoming and non-threatening, and that it really brings people together, again, in that kind of cross-disciplinary approach within a program. So good, I'm glad you're excited about it. Good. Anybody else?
Critical friends are not required to be specialists, though, are they? Could they just be faculty members that we interact with?
Absolutely, yeah.
I remember back in the day, I think College of DuPage, when they put one of their very first ones together, they had an interesting approach. They made a group of 4, and Amy, help me if I'm remembering this correctly. 2 of them were standards proficient and had been through the standards proficient training and knew the lesson revision tools, and 2 were not. And when they worked together, it was like a teaching opportunity. So that it can work that way. I think certainly the most important thing is that you're involved as the instructional leader, the master teacher at your program, that you're either facilitating or helping with the setup and making sure that there's at least one trained person leading every group.
Yeah, that's correct.
Good.
That's how we used to just try to create a bank of lessons that could be used and reused, you know, edited and added to, what have you.
Great. Yep. But it was 2 standards proficient trained and 2 non, right? Grouped together.
Yeah, and I think in the end they all became proficient, but that isn't how it started.
Cool.
Yeah.
I think in my program, we've known we've needed this group for a while. I mean, we've discussed it, talked about it multiple times, but the problem, you know, we all teach at different facilities. We don't have very many people, but the math especially, we felt like we needed to collaborate on resources, and, you know, there's just no time to do it when you're an hourly employee. You know, I teach at night, they teach in the day. With COVID, we've been forced to work together already. So this will just make it more streamlined. And, you know, even if we don't implement, I can see us implementing very quickly for fall if I can get it done, you know. So I think it's very beneficial for my program. It's like I said, it's been needed for a while. I will probably focus on just the content. I'm glad you said that. So just the math for now, but, you know, it might expand later.
So I think what Linda said was so interesting, because prior to this, I would refer to, hey, you could do a Zoom to get together with people that are all over, if you're not all at the same site. And that maybe if there's one thing that's come out of this that's been beneficial is the people realizing, hey, we can do a Zoom and we really can collaborate no matter where we are. And it's so much faster and easier. It's not like you're even walking across a campus to get to a specific office to meet. And while it may not be always ideal, it is, it does seem to be highly productive these days to do things this way. So I think that's interesting that you brought that up, Linda, and it's such a good point. And prior to this, I would say Zoom, and half the people I spoke to would look at me and be like, what? So it is one
Like
great
we
test.
honestly, we didn't even know. I mean, I don't even really know my colleagues very well, you know. That's just my 5th year maybe. And we would have, you know, a professional develop once or twice a year. Sometimes they would have it while I was teaching at my regular job, as most of our instructors are retired or older, you know. Well, I would be working. Sometimes they would schedule these meetings when I couldn't even go, and they'd be, oh, we'll get you your stuff, you know. And so this way, I mean, we've worked very well. I'm sure everyone has, together, trying to figure out the best way to communicate with students and stay on top of things. And so, yeah, I'm looking forward to the project, or this section for sure.
You know, one thing too
That's
that
so
makes
great.
me, oh, I'm sorry, Amber. I was just thinking, you remember in Brett's plan when he had, we're going to meet and then you're going to have homework and then you're going to meet and have homework. Just as something that Linda said about it, when you teach at night, I teach at day, we have full-time employees, you can keep your meetings brief, right? Like the actual synchronous meeting times, maybe you can squeeze in an hour and everybody can be there so that everybody gets their assignment and you know what you're doing and there's that touch base time. But maybe a lot of your critical friends work in your plan is done independently and you're emailing back and forth or sharing in a Dropbox folder or something, and everybody's kind of evaluating each other's work at a distance. That's another option, right? If you don't have a lot of synchronous time to meet. So just be creative and be realistic about what you think might work in your program. And then, yeah, when you get ready to try it, like Linda's talking about, just you may be surprised at how well it actually works when you actually put it into play. So yeah, but it can be a combination. Remember, it doesn't have to be everybody on the same Zoom meeting face to face all the time. A lot of the work in a critical friends group could be done as independent assignments. So just keep that in mind as you're putting yours together.
Yeah, and Lisa said something in the chat. She said she's a high school diploma track program, and they often see how reading affects all the different content areas. Yeah, for sure. And so developing a group to help address how we ensure we're meeting the standards and have that level of consistency. Yeah, and being even on the math side, I see so many issues where I'm actually teaching reading skills within the context of math, right? I'm teaching vocabulary in a way that helps students understand it. I'm helping them read word problems for understanding of the math concept that's coming out of them, right? And so that's absolutely an awesome focus. We know, you know, a lot of the K-12, if you're K-12 certified or anything, a lot of what you've learned is that reading is the crux, right? The reading is a crux of a lot of the other subject areas, you know, and hence why we spend so much time in the K-12 world, you know, kindergarten through like 5th grade, 3rd grade, definitely, but 5th grade, elementary school is basically how do you read? And then eventually we get to how do we read in other areas to inform our instruction? And so that carries through for adult ed too. And I think that's a great idea, Lisa, for
I
a
do
critical
too.
test group.
I love that idea. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you all for sharing about that. I am so excited to hear how positive you are about this idea of a critical friends group and proposing one. And I can tell that we have this group of instructional leaders with us, and it's just exciting. We just get a little happy about it.
Yeah. Do you want to, Amber, pull up the Canvas course? Will you show them the homepage? Because Amber had a great idea one day when we were talking, and she said, let's put the samples of the work that they've done in the master cohort. Like all of you guys have submitted activities. Let's make those available to everybody else so you can look at each other's work. And I'm like, yes. So if you haven't seen yet, we added a line, basically a page in each module where you can go in and look at the submitted work of your peers in this cohort. So you'll see there in module 1, Amber added a line that's called access to submitted lesson plans and observations. So when people have finished and submitted, we have put those into a very quick sampling where if you go there, you can click on each person's work and go in and look. Beg, borrow, and steal, right, in adult ed. And so somebody else has already done a great lesson revision and you want to grab it and use it, there it is, right? So there's no obligation for you to like dig through all of those and look at them all. But if you are wanting to, it's like a nice little repository of materials that you can go look at what your peers have done. So and then it's there for module 1, and then down for module 2, you'll see the resource analysis and the critical friends proposals, the two that she just told you about tonight or today. Those are going to eventually be there when we get them done. So.
And where are this? Oh, here. In the actual assignment description for the critical friends proposal, at the end, it says, click here to see some sample critical friends proposals. So that's where you'll find them if you're looking for them. They're actually in the description of the assignment. So as you're navigating through Canvas.
Great. Thank you, Amber.
Yep.
So next steps, this is easy, right? Just kind of, so you have, again, until December for this cohort to be done. So you have plenty of time. But again, if you want to try to stick to that module format, you would want to do the 2 assignments that Amber talked about today, the analysis of a tool, analysis of a text, using that tool, and the critical friends proposal. You'd be working over those over the summer, that if you're sticking with the module plan. So those 2 assignments. If you haven't completed the lesson revision or the observation tool from module 1, you can get those worked on as well. We are also, as we just pointed out, reviewing the work of your fellow cohort members. That's the page that Amber just showed you, where you can go look at everybody else's submitted work. And then the special project, we just want to touch base about this real quickly. If you'll remember, the whole 3rd module is basically open for you to work on your special project. And I think most of you have completed the special project proposal, which is in Canvas. There's a place for you to say which of the assigned special project choices you want to do, and just to tell us what your plan is in a brief way. So if you haven't done that yet, we would ask you to go ahead and do that. There's a page in Canvas called Special Project Proposal, and you can just go in there and type right in it and send it to us, tell us what you're going to do. If you're not sure what your special project is yet, we would encourage you to take a look at the choices. There's a page per each choice in the module 3 in Canvas, and you can take a look at those options. They range from doing a presentation to doing a book or an article study, taking a links course series, and reporting up what you find, working collaboratively to do some lessons. There's all kinds of choices in there. So find one that's useful to you. Again, the special project is not intended to be a wheel spinning activity, just get it done because I have to. It's supposed to be useful to you in some way. So whether that's creating material of your own or reviewing material that other people have done, what you'll do is you'll put together a little bit of a summary of what you've done in your special project, and that is what will be the content of our 3rd webinar series in December, as everybody will be sharing out what they did in their special project so we can learn from each other. So be thinking ahead to that. I know there are a handful of you out there who've actually done your special project already, just because that was the way it fell on your calendar, and that's great. But most of you still have that yet to come. So let us know if we can help you with that. But that's how that will work as the year winds down and December approaches. Whatever your project was, you will either a verbal, a written, or some sort of slide presentation, something that you'll show us kind of what you did. That'll happen at our December webinar. So,
and for those of you who maybe think, oh gosh, a slide presentation, we're talking like 7 to 10 minutes of just tell us what you did, what you learned, and share with us. So we're not talking about an hour. We have 23 master cohort people,
like
so
that.
we'll have to split that up between the 3 webinars. And with our numbers, we can't require you to do an hour each, because you guys would each be like a full day of 24 hours of listening to people talk about what they did. So we won't be doing that, but
yeah, that's good. I like that 7 to 10 minutes. That's a good, yeah, just keep it brief. And you don't have to have that prepared at any point like now. Again, that will happen in December. We're just letting you know kind of what's coming down the road so you can plan a little bit, because we know that things will get a little busy and crazy in the fall like they always do. And maybe if you're still in the middle of moving things to hybrid or online, and your professional life might still be as crazy as it feels now in the fall. So we're just helping you look ahead a little bit and plan. So, if you've got any questions about the master teacher cohort and what needs to be done or what's expected of you, just let us know. But hopefully this gives you a good overview of what's coming up and what you need to be doing in the next couple of months. And again, just use Canvas as your your information base. If you need to know what has to be done yet, go look at your grade book and see what's missing, and it'll remind you of what's still out there to do. So we really appreciate you guys a lot. We appreciate you being in our master cohort. We love, I mean, like I say it every time, but it's the absolute truth. Like, this isn't even work. This is just fun because we're hanging out with the cream of the crop at this point. And so it's just like, this is great. So we love working with you, but I also want to thank you for the work that you're doing in your programs during this time. I know that many of you have put in hours and hours and hours of effort to get your classes and your students where you need them to be at this point. And so just if you haven't had anybody tell you thank you yet, Amber and I will say it for them because you're very much appreciated.
Thank you.
Thanks. All right, Amber, anything else you want to say before we head out?
No, we're all good. If you have any questions, let us know. We're always available. You have our emails as well as the Canvas course to rely on, and have a great weekend. It's supposed to be great weather, so hopefully you'll get a chance to spend some time outside or with family or however you'd like to this weekend. So have a great weekend, and we will talk to you all soon.
Yeah. Take care, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.